Hi, my name is Jordan and welcome to my worst slash most disappointing slash least favorite books of 2018. I actually had a pretty good year for reading, so these have been pretty good. Like, even though I didn't like some of these, they still had like a lot of redeeming qualities, and I know that they're generally popular. Just because they made it into this video doesn't mean that they're just awful, terrible books. It's like I just had to pick a few that I was like, reading them just wasn't my favorite activity. I kind of like trudged through it. Just didn't really like that much, like in comparison to the other books that I read. So just kind of keep that in mind. They're not terrible, but they're not that great either. So here we go. So this first one is, I know a lot of people really liked it. That is Sky in the Deep by Adrienne Young. And I gotta say, this book had things that I really enjoyed, and it was a totally new concept for YA. I have like never seen a Viking YA book before. And I felt like that's kind of why people liked it, is because it is like the first of its kind. Like, it's this genre that no one's really like looked at, but it has a lot of potential, and it, like, Vikings are cool. Everyone likes Vikings. Like, I like Vikings. I love Vikings. I think it's really neat. I have a Viking poster on my wall. So I was really excited about reading a Vikings YA book. And I'd heard a lot of great things about it. I tried not to give in to the hype because I had already been burned that year by hype, and I was like, not gonna do that, not gonna do that again. But I kind of went into it expecting like a good story that I would like enjoy, and my problem with this is that I did enjoy a lot of aspects of it, but I felt like for me at least, it really dragged. And I don't think it was the author's fault. My problem came with the book blurb. It gave away way too much. Like, I was over halfway when the blurb started to like stop, giving information. Like I know that sounds weird, but like, this book, the blurb gave way too much information. I didn't like it, and I know that authors have no control over their blurbs, so I really don't want to blame Miss Young because that's not her fault. It was just like, I kept waiting for the information that we got in the blurb to stop. It's like, it's kind of like one of those movie trailers that gives you like way too much information, and you're like, whoa, did I just see the whole movie? That's kind of like what this was, and it was really hard to kind of trudge through it. And as they were like, really key stuff was happening, like they were building relationships, like all this important stuff for character development was going on, and I was just like so bored out of my gourd because I was like, when are these? Because it says in the blurb they gotta wait until that our ruthless clan thought to be a legend raids their village, and it took forever to get to the part where the ruthless clan raids the village, and I thought I was going to lose my mind. And so I was just so ready for this book to get to the part where I could just read and not be like, oh yeah, the blurb tells me that this happens. And so I think it was kind of unfortunate about this, and so that's why it's kind of sad that this really pretty book, it's pretty, and I think it has a good premise, and I think it was very groundbreaking, but the blurb killed it for me, and it just wasn't for me, I don't think. My next book is A Farewell to Arms by Ernest Hemingway. This book was so terrible. I think the majority of the things about these books that I don't like is that I am forced to just be dragged through the books. This is another one. Actually, 4 out of the 5 of these books that I've chosen partly made this list because they just dragged. I think that's kind of says a lot about me as a reader. I don't know. I felt like this one dragged so much, and I hated the main character. He was just awful. I hated the romance. It was terrible. It was really like, they had some really bad issues, and they were like never resolved, and I feel like that was just because maybe Ernest Hemingway didn't know that those were like definitely major red flags in their relationship. And so I hated the beginning, I didn't like the middle, I really didn't like the end, and it was just all like it was terrible. I know that it's considered a classic, and I get why. Like, it does paint a portrait of life in World War One and how the war affected everyone and stuff like that. And I know there's more to it. I know I had to do a whole like report on it, so I definitely know that there's more to it. But like, I just couldn't enjoy it. I just didn't like anything I did about it, so bye. Bye, Ernest Hemingway. The next one is, this is pretty controversial. It's The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. Now, I know that everyone loves this book, but for me, oh no. I could not get into it. I don't know. I didn't like Jude as a main character. She was very blah. She felt like every other YA character, female main character. This was the one book out of my least favorite books list that I didn't think really dragged. I just didn't like the characters. I wasn't like in love with the story. Like, I read this book really, really fast, actually. Like, I could not put it down. But my problem, so I was definitely interested. I was engaged. Like, it was a really good book to read. But then, like, while reading it, I was kind of like, I don't like these characters. And then, like, afterwards, when I was really thinking about it, I was like, I don't like this book. I mean, I like the book, I just don't like all of the characters. And the two main characters at that, I really didn't like Jude, and I also really didn't like Cardan. And the fact that everyone goes crazy over Cardan as being just gorgeous, he's Prince and he's a baddie, like, I just can't stand it. I did not like the fact that Cardan was this love interest, and like, it's kind of this hate to love relationship, and like, I understand the hate part of it. I just don't understand the love. Like, there was nothing in their relationship that made me say, wow, they would be a great couple. I could see them as being like allies, like the enemy of your enemy is your friend, and I get that. But like, romance? Really? They had no. She thought that he hated her. And he did say that he hated her. And he was like, yeah, and I hate you because, like, I love you. And I'm like, it generally doesn't work like that. Like, that, again, with the kind of Ernest Hemingway unhealthy relationships, I definitely felt like this was really bordering on an unhealthy relationship. Like, romance-wise, like, if they had been friends and ally, like, not even friends, but just allies, like, we gotta work together. And maybe after some time, if it had blossomed into like a friendship and then blossomed into like a romance, but all because like they depended on each other and they really needed each other, like, I'd be like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. But the fact that it literally went from they hated each other to like they loved each other, like that, and the fact that also they love each other and then they also hate each other like at the same time, and there were a lot of problems with this book that I was just not super crazy about. And so I also think that the hype kind of got to it. I will say, in Holly Black's defense, hype was real. It's a gorgeous book though. Like, look, it's so pretty, and the writing can be really pretty. My other problem was that I really predicted like every plot twist that happened. I was like, this is what's gonna happen, and it happened. And it was very predictable to me. So I should really just do a whole rant review on The Cruel Prince, because there aren't enough. My next book is probably another controversial, like, all of these I think are very, really beloved books. Like, I think people really enjoy all of these. And so, speaking of all, my next book is All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony, can't pronounce his last name, Doerr, I don't know, by Mr. Anthony D. All the Light We Cannot See. I really wanted to like this book. This was another book that I had heard a lot of really great reviews about, and I liked I like historical fiction. I was actually like on this really big historical fiction kick, and I was like, and not just historical fiction, but like World War II in particular. And I was so excited because this one had so many great reviews. People said he writes so beautifully, and it's just this masterfully created book. I was so ready. I was so ready to read this beautiful, perfect book. But I was not ready. I was definitely surprised by how much like I didn't like this book. Like, I liked it, but while I was reading it, it was kind of like a struggle. There would be, I think the only thing that really got me through the book and like got me through reading it was the short chapters, because I was like, I can't do this anymore. And I'd look at it and I was like, oh, okay, the next chapter is like in a page. I can do this. I know that people loved it was really pretty. He wrote lots of descriptions, but I don't think that that was like my personal thing. I just felt like he would sit there and describe something for like a paragraph. And he loved his lists. He loved listing things out. And I thought it was a very unique approach, especially since Marie was blind. I thought that was really cool. The problem was that for me, it really wore on, and I was like, by the end, I was like, please just say what's going on. He was like, show, don't tell, but like in the extreme. Like if you just show literally every single thing in a room, how it looks, how it feels. I got really sick and tired of this book. I wasn't a big fan of the book. It had a lot of potential, and I really did enjoy like what it was trying to say and the way that it connected, and I did enjoy some of like his writing style, but I also just like, a lot of these books don't truly belong on this list. It's just like they get put on here because they were my least favorite, and also most disappointing, because I had a lot of hope for these books. So maybe that contributed to their downfall, but that's why they're kind of most disappointing. This last book I kind of hyped up for myself. It's another World War II book. You can tell I was really on a kick this year, and kind of part of last year too. I was really reading a lot of World War II era novels, and so I was really, really, really excited for this one, because apparently it's going to be made into a movie, and the plot just sounded so good, and I was really ready to love it. It basically follows this guy who, this Italian boy, he's kind of like a teenager, and he joins this underground railroad to help Jews escape over the Alps. And it also says that later he comes back to his home and he becomes a driver for General Hans Leyers, one of the Third Reich's most mysterious and powerful commanders, especially in Italy. And so he becomes a spy for the Allies inside the German high command. So he becomes a spy and he's doing all this really cool stuff, and I was like, oh my gosh, this plot sounds amazing. And on top of that, it's based on a true story. And so I was so excited to read this book, and it just fell flat for me. It was so, I think the writing style of Mark Sullivan really got on my nerves. This guy just, I don't know what it was. It felt like I was reading a historical, like a nonfiction, only it definitely wasn't. He said it was fiction because he had to like fill in what people were thinking, and I felt like everything was kind of like detached from the character, and it kind of made me not feel close to the main character, which is not something that you want. The other problem was that it dragged, and I know that you can't really complain about pacing since it is like someone's real life. You can't be like, that was boring. But like it kind of, there were some parts I felt like maybe he could have cut, or maybe he could have just kind of like told us what happened, because I was kind of done with it, you know. I'm not crazy about that. Well, thank you for watching my most disappointing / worst / least favorite books of 2018. And if you'd like to watch its twin video, I will put the link in the description below, and that is my favorite books of 2018. Be sure to check out my other videos, and I am going to put up a January TBR video soon. If you'd like to look at what I'm thinking about reading for the new year, stay tuned.